This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we're fortunate tonight to have as our guest one of the leading candidates for Mayor of Montgomery, a young lawyer named J.C. Love. And you Montgomeryans probably aware of the fact you've got a hotly contested mayor's race this year. You have your incumbent mayor, Todd Strange, not running for re-election, and you have a large and very well-qualified field of candidates seeking the mayoral position in Montgomery. And as would be the case, we have a large listening audience in Montgomery in the River region. And we thank lawyer J.C. Love for being with us today. He's a native Montgomeryan.
Yes, sir. Glad to be on your show today. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. You born and raised right here in Montgomery, weren't you?
Yes, I was born and raised in Montgomery. I call myself a proud product of the Montgomery Public School System.
What hospital were you born in?
I was born in, I guess, Baptist South now, but back when it was just one Baptist.
Yeah. How old are you now, J.C.?
I just turned 40, and the funny thing about it was that after my son, who's now 1, was born, I found out that he was, the afterbirth room was the same room that I went to as a baby.
Are you serious? He was born in Baptist South
Yes,
also?
he was. Yes, he was.
My reason I asked how old you were, my younger daughter, who was 36, was born in that hospital.
Oh, she was?
I'm from Troy, but we came here to my wife's obstetrician was here, Barry Wilson. He delivered her. She's 36 years old, so about the same time. That maybe, I don't know if Jackson delivered hospital babies. I guess they did back then, but that's where most babies were born in Baptist South.
Oh, yes. I was born there. My wife was born there as well.
She was born, y'all the same age.
Yes, I've got her about 33 days, but yes, we met in junior high.
So y'all dated all during high school?
Well, you know, I actually had a crush on her back in junior high. I always tell people the funny story of we had PE together, and so we were doing square dance for about 4 weeks. I positioned myself around the room to be her square dancing partner. But no, I had a long time crush on her, but we didn't start dating till about 2008.
Her daddy is Cedric Bryant, the State Farm agent, and a friend of mine. And she is an outstanding person herself. Both of y'all professional people. She is a dermatologist here.
Yes, sir.
Tell us, folks, about her name and where her practice is, and where she did a residency at Duke, I think, didn't she?
Oh, yes. Yeah, my wife's originally from Montgomery, went to the University of Alabama for undergrad, went to Duke Medical School, and then came back to Duke to complete her dermatology residency, where she was chief resident. She practices here at River Region Dermatology here in Montgomery. It's in East Chase, right off of Berry Hill Road.
Now, you're in one of the top law firms up here, aren't you?
Yes, sir. I practice at Rushton, Stakely, Johnson & Garrett. So.
That's what I was thinking, yeah. Now, where did you go to undergraduate in law school?
I went to undergrad at Morehouse College, and then I went to Boston College for law school.
Then came back to Montgomery?
Yes. I practiced in Atlanta for about 8.5 years.
Oh, you were in Atlanta for a few years?
Yes. I practiced for a small firm and got involved in municipal affairs over in Atlanta. I had a chance was appointed by the Atlanta City Council to serve on their Board of Economic Development. I was appointed by 2 mayors to be the attorney member of their license review board that primarily dealt with alcohol licenses, and was also appointed by Mayor Shirley Franklin to be a procurement appeals officer, where I heard appeals from people who were denied the right to do business with the city. And then once me and my wife got married and she finished her residency, we decided we wanted to come back home. Montgomery was a great city to really begin our careers and also raise a family. So we've got 3 young kids, a 3-year-old Caroline, 2-year-old Catherine, and a 1-year-old little James Christopher.
Both of y'all are products of the Montgomery school system.
Yes, sir.
But now she went to Lamp, though.
Yes, she went through the whole Magna school system. She did the Forest Avenue, Baldwin, where we met, and then Lamp, where she was salutatorian. I went through Brubaker Intermediate, and then I went to Baldwin, and then graduated from Jeff Davis.
Well, you've got a lot of high school friends still here, haven't you?
Yes, I do.
They grew up with you.
And on this campaign trail, I've connected with quite a few of them.
I bet you have. A lot of them got the signs in your yard and everything?
We're getting the signs out, more and more each day, and so that's what we've really been focusing on, and putting the signs in the yard, more so in the right-of-ways, but we'll have some more out.
Election's August 27th.
Yes, it's right around the corner.
And then the runoff will be when?
October the 8th.
October the 8th. The election is November.
Oh, well, then the inauguration will be.
Oh, that's right, because there's no prior.
No, we just have
October the 8th.
Will be the runoff, and then the inauguration will be November the 12th.
Are there any other major cities like Montgomery holding the mayoral election this year? Is it Mobile, maybe?
Mobile, maybe. I know Birmingham had theirs in 2017.
I know it.
But there are always these, off-year elections in August.
When did you decide you want to run for mayor?
Well, I think really it had been something brewing over the last couple of years. Really, when I talk to family and friends and hear people talk about I'm afraid to shop at Ann Street or go past the boulevard, really began to sense that things weren't really going right from a quality of life, crime standpoint.
So Ann Street considered somewhat hazardous, you think, now?
Well, back in March there was a shooting there where someone got killed.
Right there. What location?
At the Z-Tech gas station.
Right there?
Right off of the 65
Well, I
interstate.
go there to my television station on CBS 8,
Oh, yes.
I'm on CBS 8 in Montgomery. What's that road? Lincoln Road or something?
I think it is. I'm not. Don't hold it against me, but I'm not entirely sure. But I know exactly where you're talking about.
Well, you get right into the issues then, because as people observe Montgomery, they say that two of the problems that and they maybe go hand in glove, is education and crime. Would be one of the devices of the city, and which has caused a lot of folks to move to Elmore County and even Pike Road and some other places like that. What can a mayor do about the education system? I know, talk specifically about if there's anything the mayor can do to enhance the education system. I know you can do something about the crime, probably.
Well, as you know, we have a county-run school system here in Montgomery, but the mayor having one of the biggest pulpits here in the area, definitely, the city will have a seat at the table, considering that we've got dollars on the table, because when MPS built the MTech and LAMP, it was the city and the county that put up the money to go ahead and finance the construction of those schools. So we definitely have a seat at the table to try to force some things regarding to help rebuild confidence and restore confidence in the system, to try to push the school system to take some of those measures. Because as you've talked about, it's one of the things that's really hampered us as a growth standpoint, that so many people have begun to leave, particularly regarding the question of education. You've now got Maxwell that's raised concerns.
Yeah.
Talking about so many of their servicemen have concerns about coming to Montgomery for that, area of education, as well as when you're trying to recruit businesses here. One of the main things they ask about is, what's going on with education here in Montgomery. So we definitely got to first, I believe, to try to restore confidence in the system, to try to rebuild that. But I think as far as my plan is, what I really want to do is try to give our kids a much better foundation before they begin to enter the school system. So I think, one, I want to partner with the Imagination Library, and that's a nonprofit that Dolly Parton has, where they give kids from birth to age 5 a free book every month. And I think you could agree with me, Steve, that kids who learn how to read earlier and have an appreciation for reading are going to be much better students.
They are. Yeah, the reading is education.
Yes. And also when I've talked to teachers, they talk about some of the behavioral problems they're seeing. So I think we may need to also work with some conflict resolution courses a lot earlier to get it in through the whole K through 12 program. And then we also talk to students and teachers. You see that there's some mental health issues there. There are a lot of kids that come to school growing up in very dangerous, challenging neighborhoods and are having issues dealing with some of the things that we're seeing. For example, one of the teachers I was talking to on the campaign trail told a story about one of her students had watched a close family member get murdered, and the family didn't know what to do with them as they're making arrangements. They sent the child to school to try to deal and cope with this. So those are the things we have to have some mental health programs as well in it. So those are some of the things that we can do from the city side, as well as we try to work with the elected school board to do the hard work to try to reinstill confidence, improve teacher morale, to go ahead and help do the things we're trying to do regarding recruit, hire, and better paying jobs here to the city.
It all goes hand in glove, doesn't it?
Well, yes, you can't really complain about crime and not go back to education. You can't complain about lack of opportunity without going back to education. So particularly, as you point out with crime, if we do a better job of ensuring that our kids graduate from high school or get a certificate in one of our trade programs, then we can lower crime. If we look at what we can do from a workforce development standpoint to help those some of our citizens who didn't get diplomas go back and be able to get GEDs, as well as be able to get some skills in order to, take some of the jobs we're trying to attract. And I think we can also find a decrease in crime. And I think also maybe even from a transitional services standpoint, with people coming back from prison, to help those people be able to get the skills they need and encourage our employers to go ahead and hire them. Because one of the things I tell people on the trail, Steve, is that just because you may not hire someone because they have a felony doesn't mean that they don't have a wife and kids they need to support. It just changes how they go about supporting them. And then one of the things I really want to do is really to get the community centers back going, to really give a lot of kids someplace positive to go during that after school hour, as well as now during the summer where they're out, where they can go and not only do the sports and the arts and craft and the music, but also we can go ahead and reinstill some life lessons, how to manage their money, how to show up for work on time, to dress for success. And I think as part of what we've done in the city regarding a jobs program, that I want to change it rather than we just have the kids working in parks and recreation, but I want them to work in all facets of city government. I want them to see what I do as a mayor, what the city council does, what the CFO does, and I think the more we invest in our kids, we can kind of see an immediate decrease in crime. And then as we focus on some of the other problems, acknowledge we have a gang problem here in the city and guns, that we can more aggressively, tackle those areas and get those people off the street.
How do you do that? Is it more? Do you need more police officers, or how do you address that, the gang situation and the guns and that sort of thing? Is Montgomery's police department understaffed? Do they have adequate staffing? Or does it need any revenue, or do you have an opinion about that?
Well, currently, I believe we had been about 470 officers, which was about 60 below what we've been budgeted for. We budgeted for 503, and then there's another federal match that gets us up to about 534. I heard just this past month, talking to some officers, that we lost another 12, so we're probably in that 455, 460 range. Obviously, I believe we need more officers, but I don't believe we should sacrifice the quality of officers just in order to have more bodies out on the street. So while we're working to try to find out why we're losing so many officers, as you've heard, some of it's been the change in the retirement program, that officers don't like the fact that once they hit their 25 years, they can't draw their retirement to 62 as before 2014. They could draw it as soon as they hit the 25 years. So a lot of officers leave and go to the state and other departments. Also, pay is an issue, so we have to look and see how we can pay them more. But I think we've also just got to see how we're deploying our officers. You talk to people in the city, they talk about lack of visibility. So maybe if we go to a more precinct neighborhood approach and more mini neighborhood precincts, we can increase our visibility, improve our response times, and give, and have more of a deterrent effect by people seeing more officers patrolling a much smaller area. But I do believe we need to get more officers on the street. But I don't want to do like some of my opponents and just throw out a number to you that we haven't been able to achieve, even getting fully staffed for the 35. But I just want to make sure as we're building to that number that we're not sacrificing the quality of officer just to have new officers up here on the street.
What about the area of economic development? Have you had much experience? You did some of that in Atlanta, didn't you?
Yes. I was appointed by the Atlanta City Council to their Board of Economic Development. So during my time on the board, we recruited Porsche North America to relocate to Atlanta at the site of the old Ford plant. We also recruited Carter's to relocate into the Midtown area of the city. And that was one of the times when the city was seeing whether or not it was the best use of their hotel motel revenue to build a new stadium, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where they've had the college football championship and this most recent Super Bowl. So during my time on there, we created about 25,000 jobs and stimulated about $2 billion direct economic development in the city of Atlanta. But I think really here, we just have to go ahead and take a new and different approach to economic development here in the city. I think because we're carrying so much debt from the early 2000 bond issuance that funded a lot of the downtown development, we just have to go ahead and really take advantage of the opportunity zones really that's really downtown, get more federal dollars in, and then be creative with looking at tax incremental financing and federal new market tax credits to really spur development in some of the underserved areas of the city. I think particular interest to me is really that Southern Boulevard and West Fairview corridor right off 65. that we have so much traffic that passes through this city every day, particularly now more with the EJI, the Equal Justice Initiative, and their museum and memorial here that brings about 35, 40,000 people to the city.
That many come?
That has been projected from, and it has about $1 billion economic impact
Wow.
annually here in Montgomery. That when you drive that 65 coming through Montgomery, there's really no place for you to stop. If you're heading north, you're bypassing Montgomery and stopping in Prattville, and if you're heading south, you're probably not going to stop till you get to Greenville. So, the more and more we can put more attention to that Southern Boulevard area and get some development stimulated there and recapture a lot of those dollars that are passing through here, as well as in that West Fairview area, to go ahead and try to put some hotels and some restaurants there to capture more dollars there. And then I think we also look to see what we can do to also improve the local quality of life of our citizens. So one of the things that I really want to get going is I want us to use our amphitheater a lot more. We have one of the most beautiful facilities that I've seen around. Is right on the riverfront. If you go down this time of year and watch a concert, you see the sun setting over the Alabama River. And one of the things that got me to run was really wanting to add more here from a quality of life standpoint. And so it used to burn me up when my friends would tell me they were going to Tuscaloosa, which is the 5th largest city, to see a concert. And when you really look and do a deep dive, the only difference is they have an entertainment company that manages their amphitheater. So, Mayor Maddox has really made the decision to really use the amphitheater as a way to draw more people to the city. And I think here with Montgomery, when you have so many people who live here that travel to other cities on the weekend to do things, it's some of those things that we can go ahead to have something more for them to do and also bring people to the city, fill up the new hotel rooms we're going to have online and eat more in our restaurants and make people feel, good about the city.
What about, in the last 15 years, one of the biggest plums that Montgomery's gotten as far as industrial has been the Hyundai plant out there. Do you think that Montgomery's positioned to do that again? Do you think you get something that big again? Why do you think they came here 14 years ago?
Well,
do you think a lot of incentives and that sort of thing?
I think incentives had a lot to do with it, but I always think that people realize the importance of Montgomery and the ingenuity of the people that live here. When you think about Montgomery, that we were the site of the first flight school, that the Wright brothers left Kitty Hawk to go and build a flight school here, and you look at the history of downtown and knowing we were one of the pioneers of having one of the first electric streetcars here, and the Bell Building downtown Montgomery is one of the tallest buildings in the Southeast. So there was a time here when Montgomery used to lead from the front.
It really has. But one thing that I was sitting here, I guess a couple of years ago with the current mayor, Todd Strange, and not being in Montgomery, and I had always assumed it was an economic time when the state government was suffering and the state budget was down. And I said to him, sitting just where you're sitting, I said, Todd, I guess Montgomery's been hurt significantly by the downturn in the economy and loss of state jobs. He said it has. And I said, because that's y'all's biggest employer. He quickly told me that the state government, believe it or not, most people would think is the biggest employer in Montgomery. I said, oh, is Hyundai bigger than the state? He said, yeah, it's bigger now, but the biggest employer is Maxwell Gunter.
Yes.
Unless you're Montgomery, and you really don't realize how important those bases are to Montgomery. And not just that, JC, but this having grown up here, a lot of retired Air Force officers have retired here, and they bring a lot to the table, civic-wise.
Yes, they do.
And they bring a lot they lead their churches. They've got a lot of good retirement income, and they're a real asset to this community. Is there any incentives you can do to enhance those retired military people to retire? I guess they retire because the climate's good, and they like the atmosphere. Our friendliness, I guess, is one of the reasons why they do it.
Well, yes, when I've talked to people throughout the campaign trail, you do come across a lot of people who were stationed here at Maxwell and decided to retire. Their kids were in school here and they decided to stay here to allow them to complete their education and decided to stay here. So it's definitely been a great boon for the city. Now, one of the concerns when you mention education is now that the state of public education here in Montgomery has begun to raise some concerns with Maxwell. And there was a story in Forbes just last week with General Cotton talking about how he was working to try to turn the tide on public education here in the city. And so that's one of the things that we definitely have to go ahead and work to improve, because we don't want to lose anything that we have over at Maxwell or Gunter.
Well, as you mentioned, alluded to, there seems to be, and not a consensus, but some of those military people are saying we're not going to bring our children here. You've heard that they've made that statement.
Yes.
And that may come back to haunt you during BRAC or something like that.
And that's the concern. And that's one of the things that I've tried to really impress upon people on the campaign trail about what we do about education is so important, because now you have about 60% of those who are stationed here don't bring their families because of their concerns regarding education. So like you said, you don't want to end up on a BRAC commission, because I let people know that we're not always going to have Senator Shelby, heading appropriations. And so once he leaves, we're going to have 2 junior senators, and it's going to be a while before we have them chairing anything.
You're wise to realize that.
And so you could get yourself in a situation where you do find up on a BRAC, or the situation where another base, the newer chair of appropriation, decides that the 908th Air Wing belongs in their district, or they want to bring the Air War College to their districts, or pull out all the IT stuff they have at Gunter and put it in their district. So what we do regarding education, in the next 24, 36 months is really going to be so critical.
It really is. What can the city do? Because you're in a county school system, and strange has floated the idea of having a city school system, but then you got to dismantle your other one. Do they want to give up on it? And I guess the bully pulpit is the only way the mayor can do anything. Is that not? I mean, as far as you can do something directly with crime.
Yeah. Well, yes. You saw in this most recent election last year that we had 4 new members come onto the Montgomery Public School Board, particularly because of the anger over the state of public schools, and you had Mayor Strange, who was really leading the charge to get some new energies and new ideas there on the school board. I think right now, the talk about the school board is in the paper about Mayor Strange's efforts back in 2013 to move towards a city school system. I think we've got to at least now try to get our new board members, our 4, and the one who won re-election, to try to make some changes and shape a new direction. When I've talked to teachers, they tell me about the high absenteeism in the school system that has gotten to the point that teachers decide that I'm not going to come and just don't pay me because they don't feel they're getting the support, and they cite a lack of discipline that's been going on with their school. And so we've got to, one, improve morale with the teachers. We also got to go ahead and get them to set a direction that makes people feel comfortable that we are committed to excellence and that every child that lives in the city receives a good education. As a product of the Montgomery Public Schools and having a mother who works in education, she works at Alabama State over their Upward Bound program that helps first-generation low-income children get into college, and having a mother-in-law who's a longtime teacher in MPS, and even as a parent with a 3-year-old, my wife and I are looking about where we're going to send our 3-year-old when she turns 4 to kindergarten next year, then I have a personal vested interest in trying to improve education here in this city. And I know we talk about our system being one of the lowest funded here in the state at 10 mills, but getting them the money that they say they need is not going to happen until there's confidence there. But money alone is not going to improve it. We've got to work to get more parents to be involved in what's going on in the system. And I think we also have to have the much harder conversation of letting everyone know that you are affected by what happens or doesn't happen in our school system. So if you own property here in the city of Montgomery, then if you care about your property tax values, then you're going to, then you want to be concerned about what happens, because what happens when people continue to leave our city and that value falls.
Well, it does. It has. But now, the property tax is extremely low in Montgomery, one of the lowest in the state, if not in the nation. And that's where most of your education funding comes from. Yes. These other cities, like a Decatur or Vestavia or Homewood, they have a large property tax or some kind of sales tax locally. How have they raised their money? Can the localities raise their property tax themselves?
We can raise it, but it really has to be a willingness on the community to do it, and they have to be trust in the school system that they're providing a education and they're going to be good stewards of the money that they're going to be given. And that's kind of where we are now, that there is a lack of confidence in our current school system. The one with the the overall goal and direction, to whether or not they've even been good stewards with the money that they have now. And so we've got to be able to reinstill confidence and demonstrate to the citizens of the city that the school system has made the changes necessary. They've committed themselves to a goal of excellence, and that they also have a plan about how they're going to use the money. Because I think to get it passed, you're going to need the city to be involved. You're going to need the county and the chamber to really do a campaign to educate people. Just kind of like I was saying, that we all have a vested interest in ensuring we're educating our kids.
How many city councilors are there in Montgomery?
Oh, we have 9.
And do they run this time or not?
They're all up for re-election. We have, I believe, one, I think, in District 9, Councilman Jenright, that's running unopposed at the moment, but the other 8 all have at least one person running against them. And that's going to be a hot topic, really, education, because I think...
It is. No question, it's the premier issue in Montgomery. Have you enjoyed campaigning, JC?
I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed going around and meeting a bunch of different people, really hearing the issues and concerns about living in this city and what they think the city should do better or work on and to improve the lives of everyone.
It's been 20 years since you were at Jeff Davis High School.
Yes.
Have you been out there campaigning and seen some of your classmates?
Interestingly, I was out there this weekend shooting a second campaign commercial, so it was good being back there on campus. I was there with them. They had their youth and government dinner back last month, so I enjoyed being able to talk with the students about what was going on at Jeff Davis and talking about how it was during my day and how much things had changed before they were even born when I was a student at Jeff Davis. Well,
it's a good city, and you've got a lot to be thankful for having grown up here. But you've got some pressing problems as whoever the new mayor is, and I know you'll be up for the task if you're elected. Our time's up, folks. Our guest tonight has been J.C. Love, who is a former candidate for mayor of Montgomery, a young lawyer here in Montgomery, who was born and raised in the city of Montgomery, a product of Montgomery and Montgomery Public Schools, and we thank you for taking time to be with us. And we thank you, viewers, for watching. Hope you're tuning in next week for Alabama Politics.